Welcome back to Dalren Models. In this episode I'm carrying on with the Tamiya LaFerrari build, and I'm going to be working on the bodywork today. So I've made a start by preparing all of the panels, so where you've got any extra pieces that glue onto the, for instance, the door, so you've got a piece up here, a piece down there and a piece on the side here, have all been glued on, filled, sanded so that they're smooth, ready for paint. And I've also glued the upper piece of the door mount, so it's all ready. I've done the same on the front bumper as attached to the front panel. There's a couple of areas on the rear boot lid and the rear bumper that have also been attached, so we're all ready to get painting. So as usual, I'm going to start off by turning on the extractor fan. So I've got the airbrush loaded up with Zero's grey primer. So as usual, start off, test the paint flow and start misting the paint on. So these are quite difficult pieces because of the complexity of the shape, which is why Tamiya's moulded them in multiple pieces, because they wouldn't have been able to get them out of the mould otherwise. So you need to make sure when you're painting that you get in all of the areas. So obviously you don't want to miss any bits because it won't look very good. So that's the first mist coat done, and as you can see it's not massive coverage, but that's the point of a mist coat, is to just give it a light going over. So I'll whiz through all of these doing the first mist coat, and then I'll come back on the next bit. Okay, I laid out that first mist coat, and I've then gone over the areas that I'd done the filler on with a second coat, just to cover up the seams so that I could see if there's any sanding required. And I did find on the rear panel that I did require a little bit of additional sanding just to finish it off. So I've done that, and so we're ready for the next lot of coats now. So I've got the airbrush loaded up with grey primer again, so onto the next coat. So again, check the paint flow, and I can start building layers up a little bit thicker now. But you have to take, as I said earlier, take into account all of these little areas that the paint might have difficulty reaching, because you don't want to get any gaps anywhere, because it will show through on the completed model. So you can see it's going down a bit thicker this time after I've done the mist coat. So I just go around all of it doing the same principle to get it covered. So you can see there now, it's starting to build up, and there's no seams or anything, no gaps or marks where the seams were, where the joins are, which is what we want. So again, I'll go off, finish all of these, and then come back when I'm ready for paint. But as I was saying, you need to make sure when you come to things like this that you get in all of these gaps, because it's difficult to get out with the airbrush. And the same with the front nose section, that you need to go at it from different angles to make sure you get a good coverage. So I'll just do this one on camera so you can see. So starting off on on the edges, and you need to make sure you get inside these vents that are there, because you won't be able to get those from painting on the outside. But again, it's areas that will be visible once it's all completed, so you need to make sure you get all of these areas with a good coat on. And the same will apply when you come to the clear coat and the colour coat as well, that you need to make sure you get a good coverage all over it. So notice I'm turning it at different angles to get into all of the areas. Because we don't want to have any of this red bleeding through. So again, you can see that it's starting to get a good coverage now. So I'll finish everything off and then come back. So the primer's all applied on those pieces now. So the next bit I'm going to do is to start doing some of the detail work. So on this I'm going to have a red stripe running around it. So to start with, I'm going to lay down a white base coat to go into the red. So I've turned the spray booth on, test my flow, and I just want a light coat going along there, and the same on the other door. So you can see on this anyway that all of the joins are all perfectly smooth. I've also wet sanded that primer with some 4000 grit wet and dry, just to give it a bit of a smooth finish. So do the same on these side pieces, and I'm hoping that this is actually going to turn out once it's all done. And then along here, bear with me. Yeah, along here the line that's built there. So and then same along the front lip down here. Make sure I've actually got everywhere I want it, and then the same around this bit. And then the last piece that I want to do this on is just the edges of the rear bumper. Do that one a little bit more. So I'll go and get the red paint in the airbrush, and then I'll come back and paint that. Okay, so that's the primer laid down. So now I've put in the Zero Paints Ferrari red. So I'm going to go over the same pieces again with this. And again, it's just for the trim I'm doing this. So I'm going to build up the layers until I've got a nice bright red there. So literally just along the edges of these pieces. So I don't need to worry about it making a mess as such, it not being neat, because it's all going to get masked off when you do the main colour. So I'll do that in the next bit. So I'll finish getting these done and then I'll come back to you when we're ready to do masking. Okay, so I've moved on to the masking now. So to start off with, I've made a start, as you can see on the door there, trimming it up, and what I've actually done is I've put some masking tape to hold the rear panel with the door so that I get a nice consistent line, and then if you carefully get a sharp knife and cut that tape, and then when you remove the masking tape, then you've got it exactly where you want it. So when the doors are shut, hopefully that will all line up and it will look correct once it's all assembled. So I've done the other door and the other panel, and I've done the bottom lip of the nose section. So to show you what I've been doing, I'm going to mask off around here, which is not the easiest thing to do. So I'm just going to pull some masking tape to roughly the length that I want it, which that'll do, and then lie that flat on the bench, and then with a sharp knife and a ruler, and I'll get a ruler that actually reaches the length of that tape. What you want to do is cut a nice straight line right along. Right, sorry. Yeah, so once you've got your masking tape applied to the bench, I'm just going to cut a strip off there, which I'm going to then remove. And now I know against that straight edge, I've got another straight edge that I can work with. So I'm just going to cut it to the length that I want. And then when you peel it up, if I get the corner of it, then it's exactly where we want it to be. So I'm just going to apply that down here. Just get the end of it there, and I'm actually going to be cutting it at the end here, where the actual opening is. So I'm just going to go over that bit there. If I get it straight. So yeah, this isn't the easiest thing to do, so I thought I'll try and do a video and show you how I approach it. So lay it down, and then because I've cut a thin strip, then it will go around the bend. So then I can lay it down there. As you can see, it's got a nice curve there now, following this raised edge that we've got there. Same again on the nose section. It's going to be a little bit more tricky because it's a tighter bend, but again you can see that it is going, because again, because the masking tape is thin, so you can see there that it is conforming to where I want it to be. And then the same again up this section, and where you've got longish straight runs, you want to ideally try and get the masking tape lay down, so hold it there, pull it taut, and then put it down to get a straight line, because otherwise it can end up being in a zigzag because it's thin and it moves like that. But these aren't straight, so I can't do that. So now that I've done that bit, I'm just going to get my knife again and just cut that tape there and in there, and then remove those bits. Well, I'd remove that one if it actually cut it. I didn't think it had. There you go. So that's where my red line's going to be. So do the same on the back panel. So I'll come back to you once I've done that one, and then we're ready to move on to the next section of painting the base colour. So see you soon. Okay, now that they're all masked up, the next thing I'm going to do is paint the inside of some of the panels with the 0 semi-gloss black, and then we'll move on to the body colour after that. So just turn the extract fan on. So I've already got it in the airbrush, so again, test your paint flow. So I'm going to start off with the inside of the engine cover. I'm just going to put some light coats on this. So the same applies as previous when we were doing the primer, that we want to make sure we get inside all of the gaps and cracks and everything in this, because there's not any flat surface on it, so we want to get good coverage over it all. So that's the first mist coat done. So I'm going to do the inside of the nose cone, or the front end, or whatever it's called on this car, because it's not I don't think it's called a bonnet when you've got a engine at the back, but either way I'm going to do this piece. So this time I'm going to stay away from the front part where the vent would be, because that's obviously going to be body colour. So I literally just want to get the inside parts done, just so if there's any areas that can be seen through, they are not going to be looking a mess. So the doors are going to be black on the upper part, so so around where the window is and the roof section. So I'm going to do both sides of these. Same on the other one. And then I'm going to paint inside of the rear bumper. So there's a few areas that need catching, and on the rear bumper there's a few areas that want to be semi-gloss black anyway, so I'm going to do those while I'm at it because it makes sense to. And the same on these radiator covers, that they would want to just have some semi-gloss black on there as well, and the same on that bit there. So again, I'll go off and finish doing these bits and then I'll come back with the next part. Right, they're all finished painting up on the inside of them, so I'm ready to move on to the base colour now for the actual panels. So I'm using Zero Paint's Nero Daytona Metallic Black for these. So it's already loaded in the airbrush, so again, test the paint flow and start off with some light mist coats. And I haven't bothered masking the inside. I don't really need to worry too much about overspray because at the end of the day it's all black, and for the most part any areas that are going to get overspray in them are not going to be seen from the outside typically anyway, so that's the first coat down. So a few more mist coats on all of the panels, and then we'll move on to the next part. Some of these black areas that I've already painted are going to have carbon fibre decals on, so again I'm not too worried about getting some overspray on them because they're not going to, it's not going to matter. So the same applies to the roof on the doors, so I'm just carefully going to spray these to avoid that section. Second door. But because I'm doing it black, that's why I wanted to make sure that the actual base was decent, because it will show all of the any flaws that are in there, any gaps or anything like that will be very apparent through the black. So this should all be covered up and not be visible on the inside of this panel once it's all assembled. So again, I'm not worried about overspray on that, because if you look into it, it's just all going to look dark. And then the last piece that I'm doing now is the rear bumper. So I'll go through and I'll finish doing the colour coats on these pieces, and then I'll come back. Okay, I've got all of the colour done on those pieces now, and unmasked it, done all the decaling that I wanted to be done, so I'm ready for clear coat now. So to start with, I'll just show you the front end, the nose section, so you can see the red stripe down there, and also the one on the bottom there, and I've got the same around the boot lid and the various other places that I've done it. I've also put carbon fibre decals on the top of the doors and the roof. So I'm going to go through and start doing the clear coat. So for this, I'm going to be using the Zero Paints 2-pack diamond clear coat system. First time I'm using their diamond finish, so I'm hoping for good results. I've heard good things about it. So the airbrush is loaded up, so I'm ready to start spraying. So I'll just turn the extractor fan on and I'll get started. So because I'm going over decals, I want to lay down some mist coats first. So I'm just going to check the paint flow and then just gently mist it on. You need to do this just to seal the decals in, and you don't want them to react to the clear coat. Not that they should with this paint, but it's good practice with what you're doing anyway. Certainly there's a lot of clears that if you don't mist them down, they will react, so that's what you need to do. That's what your instructions say for these as well, is what you need to do. And again, these are tricky shapes, these doors. So I'll run around all these pieces, get the first coat of clear coat on. Like this. And as you can see, it's just going down okay at the moment. Nothing really much to say about the way that it's spraying. It's as you would expect from Zero's clears. Again, you just want, it's basically like a tack coat, and although it looks like you're losing some of the shine on the pieces to start with the tack coat, its sole purpose is to give the next coats a bite, as well as, like I said, sealing in the decals. So we'll do a couple of coats like this that are very light. I'll put the carbon fibre decals on this front section as well. So I just want the clear coat just over the top of that. And then the engine bay cover. Again, this isn't an easy shape to paint, but I've also done the carbon fibre on the inside as well, so I want to get all that sealed in as well. And then the last piece that I've got to clear coat is the nose section. And again, a lot of funny angles on this to try and get into, so you need to make sure you get coverage into all of it. Don't want to miss any bits because it'll just look a mess if you miss anything. So I'll go over, do a couple more mist coats, and then I'll come back to the next bit. Okay, I'll let that sit for about 5-10 minutes now after those mist coats. So now onto the heavier coat. So you can see that on there the shine's already starting to build up, and that's just after the mist coats. So now we want to go a bit heavier now and really start to build it up. Again, you don't want this too thick because then it'll just look out of scale. It makes fitting the pieces together difficult and it just potentially cause other problems, and it just won't look right either. But you can see there after the first heavier coat that it's getting a nice shine to it. So I'll go over these pieces doing the same method, and then we'll have a look at it and see how many more coats it needs. Just having a look at it, see how it's looking. But you find with this that it will settle down as well. Sometimes if you get a very slight run or slightly a bit too heavy in one area, that as it's drying it will level itself off a bit. So don't try and correct it while it's drying, because you could potentially make it worse. You want to just leave it to sit, let it dry, and then have a look at it. If it needs any correction or anything doing to it, do it once it's dry. A lot of things you can, like polishing, you can sand out. You've got, like if you've got runs and things like that. So don't worry too much about it if it happens. So I think I'm going to do this coat and then give it at least one more thicker coat after doing this. You need to make sure you're getting all of it, any gaps and crevices and things. The last thing you want is to find that you've finished it all, let it all dry, and then you come back to it and find that you've missed a bit that's really noticeable afterwards. to just top the airbrush up. If you find that as you're spraying you run out of paint or clear coat, whatever it is you're spraying, just pay attention to where you've got to, top your airbrush up with whatever you're spraying with, and then carry on. You don't need to panic and think, oh no, it's gone wrong, I've ran out of paint, and then start trying to go over areas that you've already done because you can't remember, especially if you're doing some of the lighter colours, because they can, as you build up the layers, the shade will change, so you don't need to worry about it. You can just pick up from, like I said, pick up from where you left off. Just look when you've run out of paint, just look where you are, and then just come straight back to it once you've filled up again. I think the carbon fibre roof is looking really good now. So once it's all been finished, clear coated, dried off and polished, it should look good. So right, I'm going to go off, do the next clear coat, thicker coat, and then we'll come back and have a look at the results. So just thought I'd show you as I'm doing this that when I'm spraying, I'll try and get the camera a bit closer. As I'm spraying to the point where you can see it starting to look a bit wet, and then moving on to the next bit. Keep moving the part, because if you stay in an area too long, you're going to get runs which you don't want. But you need to get that wet look, because that's what's going to give you your shine. So you can see there that you look at that side there with that shine compared to there as I've done this next coat. So it'll make a difference when you've done it. But like I said, don't stay in one place. Just spray until you get that wet look, and then move off it so that you've got that deep shine. And if you're planning on polishing, you need to make sure that you put enough clear coat on that when you've polished it or wet sanded it or whatever you're doing, that you're not going to burn through, because the last thing you want to do is ruin all your hard work. So right, I'll finish off and then I'll show you when it's all drying. So I've got all of the clear coat finished, and then I've just spent some time cleaning my airbrush. So the drying time on this is purely as long as it's taken me to do that. So it's going to still be wet and tacky, but it's enough that I can start to show you the shine and the finish on it. So you can see there that it's got a deep shine to it. There's very little orange peel at all anywhere that I can see, and it's the same on the inside where I've done the carbon fibre, and you can see the light catching it with the reflection and everything, that you can see how good the shine and the finish is on that. And that's purely as it's come out of the airbrush. Like I said, it's still tacky. I've not done anything with it yet. Same with the nose cone. It's still tacky, but you can see the depth of the shine in there on that edge of that wing. So overall, I'm impressed with that, and I've compared it briefly to another model I did in black with just the plain, or the normal original 2K clear, and there's a noticeable difference in the finish. And again, you can see on the carbon fibre there that finish on there. You can see where I can catch the light in it. You get the reflection on it. So once it's been polished and finished off properly, it should look absolutely stunning. Again, on the doors, straight out the airbrush. I'm not sure you're going to find a better clear coat than that. That's just fantastic. So yeah, big thumbs up from me on that. So the next part will then be assembling all the body panels together. So see you soon.